Creation of artificial subjective worlds. How to make an artificial world exist for itself. The creation of any being, when something comes out of nothing that exists for someone or something, is possible when creating a closed system with internal emergent properties, which are absent in our objective universe, but exist for this system. This definition includes the creation of artificial worlds and artificial consciousness. We consider systems without elementary particles and quantum effects, created on the scale of our macrocosm by electricity. Worlds may not be as big and complex as ours. They may not have, for example, space, but they may have other degrees of freedom of their manifestation. Artificial consciousness is also a kind of first-person world, brain in a vat. Such consciousness may have no vision and no concept of space. For example, if its carrier lives on the ocean floor without light, movement and in zero gravity. But its other senses will provide their space of possibilities. This consciousness will exist in the iridescent sense of smell and taste caused by the chemical composition of water. It can exist in the iridescence of touch or emotions, which will also be some kind of degrees of freedom for it. All these feelings will have not 3 dimensions, like space, but more, and will be present at once in one subjective world of this consciousness. It is even possible to create a space of meanings from the letters of the alphabet, from which word sentences and concepts can be composed, with their connection to the emotions of artificial consciousness. But our idea of consciousness assumes the presence of memory, personality, and only one observer in the system. We talked about this in detail in our previous video, Artificial Soul, Protoneuron and Proto-Consciousness. And an artificial world may not have all this, but nevertheless be a closed system with its own relationships and properties. Let us repeat what criteria a system must meet in order for the emergence of internal being to be possible. Difference. If there is no difference in the sensations of the observer, in relation to whom they manifest, consciousness does not exist. The same is true for an artificial world. If a system does not perceive the difference between the coordinates of its space, between different energy values, the presence or absence of a charge or other properties, such a world will not be able to contain its own laws and exist. Let us imagine some abstract X. If X perceives a difference with something external, then X is part of a larger world. If X perceives the difference within itself, then X is a system, a thing in itself, its own consciousness or world. If X has neither external nor internal differences, then X does not exist, because it does not manifest itself in any way, neither outside nor for itself. Let's describe another example. Imagine what would happen if an elementary particle were isolated from the laws of nature. It would disappear, because it would stop interacting with our world. All quantitative and qualitative attributes of a particle do not belong to it, but to the entire system of our universe as a whole. Charge, mass, size, speed, etc. The perception of difference ensures the operation of fundamental physical interactions and laws of nature. Therefore, to create an elementary particle, you first need to create the entire universe. Even if we try to create a simpler system, we must also create in it our own laws of its own nature. To do this, 2 conditions must be met. First, describe and repeat the basic mathematical equations of these laws and interactions in the system, even if it is not similar to our world. Second, solve these equations in the present tense, replacing the temporal degree of freedom as in digital technologies with the spatial one as in non-bit. Having obtained the equation in the form of a physical effect in the present time. Since reality, the observer function, Perception and interaction exist only in the present time. Virtual models are not capable of this, because part of their signal is in the past and part is in the future. In the present, there is only a voltage drop in the form of a bit, which does not carry complete information. Therefore, in the nature of our world, chemistry, physics, or the brain of living beings represents a spatial construction, where the value of a signal is determined not by its modulation over time, but by where it came from in the system and caused a distortion of the given complex form in its equilibrium. Using only electricity, one can express some values in terms of others in equations, yielding a wide range of different properties and parameters. And then the parameters of the new world will be limited only by the imagination and qualifications of the author-creator, and the technical ability to create them. The concept of such an artificial world is much broader than the previously described concept of artificial consciousness, at least in terms of new formats. And what if such a system is connected to AI? In the following videos, we will go into more detail about the options for solving such equations. We will only hint that the technical solution is to add fields and currents, and their superposition is the equivalent of zero in the equations. Subjective systems, which are artificial worlds, can be isolated or nested. The isolated ones do not intersect with each other in any way. Each of their properties exists only for themselves. For example, contrary to the generally accepted opinion about the expansion of our universe after the Big Bang, it does not expand anywhere. Since space is an internal property of the universe and does not exist outside its boundaries, only the internal proportions of the relationships change. Thus, the internal properties of one subjective system, its endless expanses and colossal energies, although these concepts depend on the reference point within the system, can easily fit into a keychain around the neck in another system. Much like how all the three-dimensional space of our universe that we perceive is just a projection into a condition the size of our head, especially in linear two-dimensional neural connections. Nested systems consist of the properties of parent systems. We can create several artificial and isolated systems for each other, but in doing so, we are forced to use the properties of our universe, electricity, space, and the laws of nature. Therefore, any system we create will be embedded and transparent for our objective universe, since the universe sees all energy imbalances and their values, ensuring the operation of the laws of nature and the conservation of physical constants. This is actually a very interesting concept. It turns out that you can create not just worlds, but ones with multiple internal systems or consciousnesses, having received an embedded or spontaneous evolution inside. The same can be said about the consciousness of all living beings in our world. While animals and humanity do not know and do not understand how consciousness works, the universe has not only been peeping on us for millions of years, it has also been creating our sensations, making sweet sweet and green green. But we will look at this in detail in the next video. Does nature feel the sensations of living beings in it? In order for our world to exist, we need some kind of observer, a single condition for assembling the entire system, something in relation to which everything that exists will manifest itself, all the laws of nature, energy and space, all the sensations of all living beings, a kind of eye of God that makes existence possible. What is present everywhere and always, in relation to what does any change in our world, any physical processes manifest, but without affecting or changing it. What do we usually overlook? But this is reality. What does the whole world see at once on all scales? This is the moment of the present. All our sensations are a registration of differences relative to the present moment. Stop them, and consciousness disappears. All physics is a description of changes in the coordinates of space, energy, and other properties relative to the present moment, which does not move anywhere, does not change in any way. It is always neutral. It is the observer relative to whom everything manifests, physically, cognitively, and so on. This is not time. We have not mentioned time anywhere. Time is a thought projection of changes in the properties of the world relative to the present moment. It is there, in the present moment and reality, that we try to create complex relationships that will be an artificial subjective world. Think about it.